Hey, I'm Ben from Human Digital.
And I'm Steph from Q Marketing.
This week, we're diving into one of the biggest questions every business leader faces. How do you set up marketing in an organization so it actually succeeds?
Unpack the many shapes and structures marketing can take, from in-house to agency models, and explore what great leadership of a marketing team really looks like.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer, but there are definitely approaches that work better than others. So tune in. Happy Saturday, Steph. How's it going?
Happy Saturday, Ben. Pretty good. I've just started my morning with some ceremony, which was amazing at Les Mills, one of my favourite classes, followed by a sauna today. What about you?
Good. Well, I started with also Les Mills grit and then core and then coffee. We call it GCC, grit core coffee. And that is the ritual for Saturday. And that's a great way to get the day started.
I love it. When I finished at the gym this morning with my partner, and I said, what I really love about a Saturday workout is somehow it reminds me of my 20s. And I think that's just because I've got no responsibilities. So it's a great way to start the weekend.
So what are we talking about today, Steph?
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about different ways that marketing can be set up in an organization, different structures, whether that's agency versus in-house, what the right model might be, maybe depending on the size of your organization or potentially what industry you're in. So I think it'd be quite good. What do you think?
Yeah, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but there are definitely some setups that work better for marketing and for the entire organization.
Perfect.
So what's been going on in your week, Steph?
Okay, so less on the work side. The biggest thing for me this week is I'm trying to find a new office space. So unfortunately, the office space that I've been in is kind of disbanding. And so that's left me a little bit transient this week. And I'm going to come and try out Biz Dojo, do a bit of a session in Ponsonby on next week. I'm just trying to find my new home. So I've been a little bit unsettled. I think one of the things I've realized is I don't do well sitting at home on my own 5 days a week. That's not a good place for Steph. And then I've also just been catching up and meeting a couple of new businesses that I want to work with. And then big news for me is I started the spring clean of my wardrobe. So every season I do a wardrobe changeover. So I started that last week, and it gets worse before it gets better. And I need to finish that job this weekend. What about you?
Can we expect some new looks from Steph over the next season?
What we can expect is Steph will know where her looks are hiding and maybe throwing away some of the stuff that really should have been, but there's some things that needed to be exited for sure.
So speaking of exiting, I finally got a haircut and there was a lot of excess hair, and I think I'm in a bit more of a manageable state now because it was getting very long.
Yes, you did spend slightly less time touching up your hair before we started this morning, so I can see the results.
Yeah, thank you. We also had some great progress with Human Digital. So we've partnered with Firmable, and Firmable are a leading B2B intelligence platform. So they provide the most accurate B2B database across Australia and New Zealand, and they enhance your targeting with rich buying signals. And buying signals, for those that don't know, it is when a buyer is ready to buy. So, there's signals like they're checking out your website, they're looking at your social media, and it helps sales and marketing teams find, prioritize, and convert the right buyers faster. So that's really exciting.
That's really cool. I think we should track the progress of this because it's not something that I've ever used. But how did you decide to partner with them or to use the product in the first place? Like, what was that buying cycle like?
So the buying cycle was, they are Australia and New Zealand specific. So there's a lot of tech in this space, in MarTech and sales tech. So this is one of those companies that are really specialized in Australia and New Zealand. So the American companies, you might be familiar with Lusher or Apollo. They have really good global databases, but sometimes they don't have that focus in the New Zealand market. So this is really that platform that is focused on Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, that's really cool. I definitely want to hear how that goes. And what else?
We also finalized our spot with South by Southwest, which is amazing. So yes. Finai will be in South by Southwest. We are doing a live podcast on Wednesday, October 15th at lunchtime at Claire Hayes House, which is in Tumbalong Park. So this is the first time we're recording canned live, and a great opportunity for us to have everyone there, have a beer, have some gyoza, It will be a lovely time in Sydney.
That'll be great. I'm stoked to be going to South by Southwest. It'll be amazing.
It is, and it's a great conference, and highly recommend people come along. This year is, I believe, the third year that they're running it. There's the opportunity to buy day passes. You can just come along, just come to Claire Hayes' house if you're a marketer and you don't want to invest in the full conference, or you can buy a ticket for the whole week. So there's technology, there's marketing, there's design, there's music, there's film. Really amazing conference.
Amazing. What's been happening in the market? Give us an update on what the hot topics are for marketers this week.
Well, not so much marketing, but kind of everything. We had the Apple announcement, which happened on September 9th. So whether you love them or hate them, iPhones have a whole new range. I think the key summary is not much is really changing here. And I think with phones and phone tech, the price changes and they get more expensive. I think now it's almost more expensive to buy an iPhone than it is to buy a MacBook, which is interesting.
No, it 100% is, because I bought the iPhone 16 recently and it's an eye-watering amount of money when you break it down. Like for me,
it's almost $3,000.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think back to buy it, it's more than a TV, which kind of makes sense. But by the same token, it's a lot of money to fork out for one device.
It is. But also the way that I look at it is you're cramming a lot of technology into this. So it is your music listening device. It is your main camera. There is a lot of features and tech inside these phones. And it is the device you are on most of the day.
Okay, and what else?
They also have AirPods Pro 3, which has a live translation feature. I think that was one of the biggest highlights, where if you're talking to someone that is speaking a different language, it will do that live translation. How that works in practice remains to be seen, but that's a really cool feature. And then they also updated the Apple Watch. So there is more health-focused features. And they've got blood pressure, hypertension monitoring, better sleep tracking. So yeah, I would say, small upgrades to these pieces of tech, and Apple trying to give you reasons to spend more money with them.
So here, I've got two things to say about that. One is on that AirPods and the translation. I wonder how that will be different to what we have with our Meta glasses. You know how you and I have got those, and it's got a translatable feature on that. So I'm interested. Maybe that's something to go away and investigate. I'm really interested to hear how that would work. And I have a question for you. Are you an Apple iWatch user, or do you have a smartwatch?
Yes. So I use Apple for my phone. I do have the Apple Watch. I have a love-hate relationship with the Apple Watch, mostly just because of the notifications, but I've turned most of those off now. But I do like the Apple Watch for its health features. The battery doesn't last very long. I have owned a Garmin in the past, and I like the Garmin because it lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, currently Apple Watch, and I'm pretty happy with how it's functioning. This is one of the Pro, maybe 2 editions ago.
Yeah, got a digital watch last year when I was doing a half marathon, and I decided to go for a Garmin because I actually wanted a round watch face. In some ways, it surprises me that you can't get alternative watch faces with an iWatch. That's literally one of the main reasons I didn't choose it. I didn't like the look of it.
And you're happy with your Garmin?
Love it. It's awesome. I mean, I've had, for anyone who cares, terrible sleep scores this week. That's something to work on.
Yeah. What's keeping you up, Steph?
Possibly wine.
Yes, alcohol does have that effect.
Okay, let's move on.
Moving on as well, YouTube turned 20 years. Can you believe it? I don't know how long they've been part of Google. I feel like a lot of that time. But yeah, YouTube, they're saying that YouTube is reaching the peak of its maturity cycle. So, they've got a really large user base, a lot of people using them on different devices, on their phones, on their TVs. And they have rolled out some new features. So expanding playback speeds, apparently, I don't know who wants this, but you can listen at 4 times speed on your mobile. That's just crazy.
Wow.
So if you want to listen to the marketing podcast at 4 times, let us know how that sounds.
I can tell you right now, I sound like a chipmunk at 1.5, so I don't know what 4 would be like.
Oh my goodness. And then they've got a voice replies feature. So creators can reply using their voice to comments, which is quite cool. And then YouTube TV has multi-view layouts for non-sports content. So that just allows you to multitask. What isn't confirmed yet, but there are rumors of, is a 60-second unskippable ad, which sounds awful, but hey, anything to get more ad dollars on the platform, right?
Yeah, and I think that'll just be a change for people's viewing habits. We already have to, when we have to watch ad on pause when we're watching other shows and other streaming services. But I think in the YouTube format, that's going to be quite a shock to the system.
And at the moment, the non-skippable ads are normally capped at 15 seconds on mobile and 60 seconds on TV. So, maybe this is more in the line of watching it on the big screen.
And also getting you to pay so you don't have to watch them, one would
Indeed.
imagine. Yeah.
Indeed.
Hey.
So let's get into the main part. What does a really effective marketing team look like?
Yeah, and I think this is such a great one, right? So the definition of an effective marketing team is probably one to spend some time on. And it's worth thinking about, like when we're reflecting on how we were going to answer this topic per se. For me, a really effective marketing team is one that is really clearly aligned to the business goals for a start, and is kind of, you've right-sized your team relative to the job to be done in the business. I've got lots of examples of marketing where marketing has kind of been an add-on in a business. And I think that's an interesting situation to be in, because in that situation, it's just, you sort of become the catch-all for all the, the brochures or the sort of manual stuff, and you don't really have a seat at the table to impact change. So my definition of being an effective marketing team would be one that's actually delivering to the business goals and at the same time has really got the voice of the customer in the room. And I think that's often said about the function of marketing, is our role is to really intimately understand your customer or your client really, really well, and to find the best way to help drive success of the business by understanding that and growing that customer base. What would you take on that from a B2B?
Yeah, B2B, to your point of marketing being an add-on. In B2B businesses, marketing is typically an add-on to sales. And with B2B, the relationship with the customer is key. And as a B2B brand grows, they bring on salespeople. Those salespeople will start to grow the business. They'll be doing emails and cold calling and, beers. Maybe they're at the golf course. You think of that traditional sales type. And then eventually they will run out of opportunities. And so then they typically bring on a marketer and tell that marketer, we want more leads. And then you kind of get this short-term focused marketing team that is really not marketing. They're more just a lead generation engine. But as the business matures and develops and as they understand, hopefully, the importance of brand, marketing in B2B has an opportunity to become more strategic and to really help grow the business in a way that is more brand aligned than sales aligned.
Do you think there's more tension than normal between marketing and sales? What I'm thinking of here is often in B2B, you've got a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead. And I often hear of sales saying marketing are giving me terrible leads, and marketing
Not
is
enough
saying,
leads.
yeah, and sales aren't following up any of the leads that we're giving them. And actually, really interestingly, in the past 7 days, I've heard a little bit about this. I don't know, what do you think?
There is definitely a tension. I think when you're looking at a B2C organization, a lot of sales don't require a person. So,
Yes.
especially in e-commerce, I mean, maybe you have, a person that is at a checkout, or in some retail situations, someone that's guiding you around a store, but the sale is probably more marketing led. I think that's still the same with B2B. However, when you are doing these higher ticket items, so the corresponding situation would be car sales, house sales, these big tickets in B2C where you've got someone to help you with your decision. The same could be said about B2B, the bigger ticket items. The tension is there because the sales team will be driven by their targets. So they'll need to meet quotas based on revenue, based on, the number of people that they reach out to.
Yeah.
And if they're not getting enough leads or the right quality of leads, yeah, there is a tension. But at the same time, there is also a very short-term focus from sales, because sales will be wanting to meet their monthly, quarterly, annually goals. And a successful marketing organization can't be tied to only short term deliverables. They really need to be thinking more 5-year strategy about
Yeah.
how do we build this brand. And it's been shown, and we've got a lot of data that shows that strong brands mean that you get more leads and better quality leads, and you pay less for those leads.
So you're so right. And I think this is, I had a conversation with somebody in a B2B organization this week, and she sits in sales. And her frustration was that she wasn't seeing any visibility of what marketing were doing. And so, if you put your salesperson's hat on, what you're looking at is maybe your next 3 months, going, "Cool, when do I think my leads are going to come in?" And it was a real eye opener for me to see that there's an opportunity for marketing to take sales on that journey and say, "This is the work that we're doing, and we know that the pipeline's looking like this." And so you can reasonably expect that your pipeline might look, it might not be another 3 months before our marketing kind of really can be picked up and turned into a sales lead. So that for me was because I don't sit in that B2B world all of the time, just interesting about the communications. If we think about how do you be an effective marketing team, it sounds like one of the key things here too is the relationships that you have with other parts of the business, depending on how your business is set up.
Yeah. And so, in terms of B2B, it is important to have the right buy in. And I think where you have the marketing team reporting into the sales team, it can be a little problematic. So, it's important to have the marketing team straight into the CEO, or having a seat on the leadership table,
Yeah.
because that's really the only way that you're going to fight for the resource that you need to have a really successful marketing function. Whether you're B2B or B2C, marketing does need that seat at the table.
Yeah. And look, I think one of the greatest frustrations that I've had in almost every organization that I've worked in, given that they're also been B2C, is this definition of the marketing team as the colouring in department.
Mm.
And there is nothing that makes me angrier than hearing the team referred to as that. And what I would say is every marketer should be fighting tooth and nail to not be referred to as that. Effective marketing should be very much tied into commercial reality and commercial outcomes in whatever form that takes. And the real danger for, I guess, the marketing department is just to be seen as literally the bit that's doing all the fun stuff, the jazz hands and the storytelling, and none of the things that actually move the dial. And what that means is the whole marketing team is at risk the minute there's a downturn or the minute that sales decline. It's really easy to come for the marketing department. So if you're looking to protect your profession, looking to protect your job, the sooner you can tie your team, the work that you do, to a commercial outcome, the stronger your case will be.
Agreed. Well, I disagree that we should really be upset about being called the colouring department, because marketing is fun. It is the creative side of business. And rather than getting upset, get even. And the way that you get even is similar to what you were saying, is show the numbers. Don't be scared of tracking the results of the efforts that you do. And that is important. Yes, have fun. Yes, have a great career and enjoy your work. That's what's so amazing about marketing. But yeah, have your receipts.
Yeah. So obviously I've spent some time working in alcohol, and which is fun in and of itself. And one of our, I'm giving away secrets here, but if you want to get people in the business on site, often in that sort of size of business, you've got commercial partners, you've got finance, and a lot of those people are gatekeepers to you getting your budget signed off, or even shopper marketing, actually, sometimes if you want extra space in store. So a really great hack that we used to do is we used to make sure that we invited a few finance people and a few people outside of our team to all of our cool fun events, which is great. I mean, it feels like it was a win-win, but it's that whole building relationships internally. They understand a little bit more about what you're doing. There's actually nothing better than having somebody pouring beer at a beer festival and seeing how amazing that is. The next time they're looking at you asking for the money to do that beer festival. So that's my hot tip.
Brilliant. And it is inviting them along. It is building a relationship with them. But even more important than that, make sure that they get your reports and that they understand them so that when you are presenting your quarterly or annual figures, that you really show how your marketing efforts directly impacted revenue and sales. And that is what makes it harder for budgets to be cut. So when you can actually show, and you can't always show the ROI of some of these campaigns, but you can show the impact that you're making. And I think the better you can do that and the better that you can tell the story, the better chance you have to secure budget and resource.
Yeah, I agree. Now, another thing that can have a huge impact, and I've personally experienced this, is the organization's view of marketing and where they see the marketing function. And what I mean by that is there are some organizations that are very brand forward and very much you think about the organization and you really understand what that company stands for, or maybe the brands that they have. I think Air New Zealand would be a great example of that. A lot of like Leave and Lion would be a brand led organization. And when you're working in a company like that, you know that marketing is at the heart and center of that company's success. And
Mm,
so that for as a starting point is a really great way to have an effective marketing team.
mhm.
But there's probably some other examples, right, where marketing's not quite in that driving seat.
Yeah, I think this is in some of these SaaS companies where you've got engineering as the founders. And I think it does have to do with the founder of the company and the culture and the tone that they set. And a lot of the big companies these days, talking about Apple, Google,
Mm,
Microsoft, these are engineering technology, sometimes software, sometimes hardware. I guess a combination of technology led or product led, where there is value in this. And, we all want to buy quality software, quality products, but where the customer becomes detached, where you stop listening to the customer. And I see so many companies that start off and they are successful and they create this great product, but then over time they stop listening to their customers. They focus on the product and technology enhancements that their engineers think are the best. And this reflects back to our research episode where we are not the consumer, and when you stop listening to the customer,
yeah.
things happen. I think it's unfortunate. And I think everyone is familiar with that large corporate company that are the market leader that now have a monopoly that don't have great customer service. They don't provide the right level of staffing on the phones. They stop investing in the enhancements that really are important to customers. They just
Yeah.
start doing more of the vanity type enhancements.
Now, I can think of examples back in my really early career where this happens, and often in tech space, actually, we talked about Apple bringing out products. Now, that's a brand-led business, but I've worked for some other technology businesses whereby very much they had product managers instead of marketing managers. And it was so product-led. So it was like, right, you imagine you're selling, let's say a TV, for example, through a wholesale network, through large format retailers, things like Lowell Leeming, etc. And it was very much this is the latest product and just sell that product. Didn't matter if there had been a desire to do it, but the factory had produced X amount of the latest upgrade of the thing. And so marketing's job in that instance, where it's a product-led business, is just the brochure, the tech sheet, a bit of in-store training for the sales staff, but no real opportunity to impact change or to come up with anything creative, because at the end of the day, you were being driven by, here is the release of products that we'll be doing for the next 12 months. Just find some ways to creatively talk about the features and benefits.
Well, the interesting thing is product is one of the marketing Ps. And I think one of the problems with modern organizations and modern marketing is that we've broken marketing into pieces. Marketing more is now really just promotion, and product has for some reason been separated out. So,
Mm,
if we think about back to marketing 101, product is a key part of that and it's been split away. I would argue the best businesses are customer led organizations, not marketing led, not product led, not technology led, not sales led, customer led. And one of the best organizations, best brands I work for is American Express. And they, I would say, were a customer-led organization. So they prided themselves on service. They were a service company, but they backed that up with amazing marketing, amazing product, amazing technology, a real dedication to the customer, and customer was at the heart. And I would say the best companies are the ones that really put the customer at the center. And I think this is why you have roles like Chief Customer Officer, which is fairly popular now, and product and marketing, and sometimes even service report up to this customer officer.
So I agree. I absolutely agree. But there's a part of me that thinks this is utopia. And I've also worked in organizations where you've got overheads in a factory that you have to maintain, or the business loses money. And this is where sometimes that real friction can happen between a marketing manager or somebody in marketing saying, this is what the customer wants. But then you've got other supply chain or operations or somebody else or finance saying, that's fine, but we need you to produce X amount of this product to make our overhead costs in our very expensive factory to keep it down. There's, I absolutely agree with you. I think the idea of finding a company that is, many companies that are truly, truly, truly customer driven, they're rare, and that's why they're exceptional in some cases.
And you still need, you can't just be customer. I mean, that you would become a charity if you didn't have any other constraints. Like, yes, you need your CFO saying, this is the budget that we have.
Yeah.
Yes, you need your head of operations saying, this is what we can physically deliver. But I think having that customer and everyone understanding, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like, without the customer, you don't have a business.
Some people try though.
They try.
I've seen people try really hard to make it work without a customer. Okay. I mean, look, and then another really great angle to this, I suppose, is what sort of conditions would be best for a marketing function to really thrive? Like, if you're sitting in a team or you're looking around and you're going, this is where we do our best work, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about?
Well, there are so many. And I think one of the main things is leadership support. You have to have an organization that understands the value of marketing, not just the coloring department, and maybe coloring and something else. I think we need to have a bit of fun with that as well. I think, marketing it is the lifeblood of the business. It is the fun. Really if you think about the marketers you work with, it's high energy, it's ideas, it's creativity. Like, this is what makes business enjoyable. But also making sure that you've got leadership support for marketing. And the way that you get leadership support is with data and numbers. And I think it's as marketers, yes, don't stop being fun. Be the personality of the business, but know how to switch on your numbers side and be ready to present, be ready to justify, be ready to show the receipts.
Yeah. And I think, where I've seen marketing teams work really well, it is where they also understand what the sales team needs. So, like it or not, there is a natural integration between the two. And the stronger your relationships with the sales team or the key accounts team and understanding what that looks like, that will help you be more efficient in your marketing. It helps joined up business planning. Like if you're planning your calendar out, what are the key sales moments that you're trying to hit? Have you aligned with what the promotional plan is in the supermarkets if you're working in FMCG? So I agree, and great leadership, and the job of any leader really is to back the team. And I always think really great leadership is you're a little bit of an umbrella, and you're protecting your team and you're supporting them within the business, and you're building the reputation of your team within the business. And you're filtering down the information as you need, but you're also trying to motivate them from the other side.
100%.
Yeah. Another thing that is one of the things, I sound like a true marketer when I say this, marketing needs some level of budget, right? So I think there's an element of marketing can't really do their best work if they're not given the funding to achieve the goals that the business is trying to achieve. And by that, I mean, if somebody has said, we're expecting a 20% growth year on year, well, then there's a certain element of spend that needs to take place in order to deliver that. So I think right-sizing the budget to achieve the sales goals would be one way that, you don't set your marketing team up for failure by asking them to film their own TikToks or whatever and expect that that's going to do the job.
And I feel that a lot of marketers do this really well. So they do plan out their budgets. I'm not sure of any organization that don't set that marketing budget annually and that have that rigor and that they're talking about this is the overall budget, this is what we're going to spend on brand, this is what we're going to spend on campaigns. I think the part that gets missed is when budget cuts are happening. And again, we've got an episode that talks about this, being ready to justify and fight for that budget. So I think setting the budget, fine. Spending the budget, fine. Justifying and defending that budget, harder. And I think that's what marketers need to get practiced at, is understanding what part of your budget is non-negotiable and what part of the budget you have flexibility, and being ready for that so that when the finance department comes knocking, you already have a plan. It's like, and have a plan for additional budget if it comes along, and be able to show how you can deliver against the business priorities with your different marketing activities.
And if I think about some of the best teams that I've worked in, they've been, and this will be a personal preference, but they have also been teams that have been allowed to have a degree of creativity. And usually that creativity should be fitting in with what the business looks like, how the business operates. So any marketing, no one, and regardless of which department you're in, wants to be shot down every 5 minutes and told that none of their ideas are any good, and that marketers by their very nature are often really creative. So for me, I think, a really great marketing function has a little bit of freedom to be creative, to maybe be the ones that are bringing some things to the table that people haven't thought about before. I think we can be at the forefront of thinking for businesses. And I know that that would be an environment in which I would definitely thrive. And I've seen when marketing teams are given that opportunity, I've seen it work really.
And it's definitely the balance. It's that creativity and the analytics. So it's bringing both of those together. And it's really hard. I mean, some people would say it's left brain, right brain. You do want that balance, and it doesn't have to be the same person. There are marketing departments that have different skill sets within them. So creative people, marketing analytics, more analytical people. So, all of these things, they don't have to be in one person, but it's knowing how to tap into the right skills within your team, and more importantly, invest in the right type of people so that you're building your team in a way that is, again, aligned to the goals of the business.
And one of the things and it's come up a little bit with some of the clients that I'm working with now, and particularly when I work in that fractional space, is understanding who needs to be in your team. For example, should there be a social media or a content person in your marketing team? Should there be an analytics person? Do we need an in-house PR support? Like, thinking about how your team is structured within the business is actually, I don't think necessarily as easy as it sounds. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can do it, and I've often been tasked with coming up with what the right structure would be. So back when I started working, it was a very traditional marketing structure: assistant brand manager, senior brand manager, marketing manager. But marketing itself has become quite fragmented now. And then you've got things like search specialists, digital marketing. Do you have any thoughts on how do you even go about thinking about the best way to structure a marketing team?
Yeah, definitely get advice. And I think don't always just choose people like you. And I think this is the inherent bias that we have. And we get these marketing departments that look like the leader. And what we need to understand is understand our biases, understand where we have gaps. And this is where outside support, like a fractional CMO, can really help, giving you perspective and essentially showing you your blind spots. Because if you're a creative marketer, you're probably likely to recruit and hire and promote people that look like you, creative marketer, when what you might actually need is more data and analytics people. So it is having that person that can look at you from an objective perspective and your team and say, this is what you're missing, this is what you need.
Yeah, and the biggest, where I see people trip up so frequently in the social media space, because that's where it's almost like in the traditional businesses, it's very common to you will most likely have an outsourced agency if you're of a reasonable size. The smaller the business, I think, the more likely you are to have maybe an in-house designer. You might, and you'll have somebody who's potentially, so if you're doing high churn on producing items, you'll have an in-house designer, and you might have somebody who's dabbling in a little bit of social media, and that gets really tricky because I think sometimes you can stretch those people really, really thin because they're
Mm,
doing content marketing. Maybe they're doing some search. Maybe they're doing the newsletter. Maybe they're
mm.
also, it's a requirement for them to do social media. And I think at a certain size of a business, it's definitely worth stopping and thinking and looking at whether you're better served with an agency structure at that point to help you. Because there's just this risk of people trying to spread themselves too thin a little bit.
Indeed, spread themselves too thin and also not having the expertise needed to be effective in that channel. And I think that's the key thing in it. And as you grow, you need to look at your mix, both in-house and agency and freelance. What is the right mix for your business needs? And that changes over time. It changes as the business matures, as the product service mix changes. You should always be thinking about what is the right talent. And a lot of the decisions about in-house versus external, a lot of them are budget. So
Yeah.
can you afford to bring on a full-timer or a freelancer? But a lot of it is the expertise, and where in-house is really good is where you've got a really clearly defined position. You know exactly what this person is going to be doing. It's clear, it's not too broad, and you really get a lot of advantages, especially A, cost, but also B, knowledge retention by having someone in-house. Freelance can be good if you've, again, got a specific job
Yeah.
that needs to be done, that you can really have a really good tight brief on, and you can bring someone in and they can execute it. But where you need experience that you don't have in-house, where you need an expert, and where you really are looking to achieve specific results, but you might not know the process, that's when bringing in an agency can help. Where you can't afford to bring on a full timer, but you need someone that can hit the ground.
It also depends on how frequently that particular task or thing is happening. So if it's something that's a one-off, like maybe you've got one really big event that you do every year and you don't need somebody to be an event manager for the entire year, but it's one big thing, then yes, you call on the experts. So yeah, the frequency with which you're performing a particular task or strategy or tactic, I suppose, can also influence whether you should pay for a full-time salaried resource or outsource it. I recently met with really interestingly, a social media agency, and they had switched from having all employees to having contractors. And the reason they did that is because they were matching up their freelance network with the clients that they were attracting. So that it had some, I guess, in terms of the day-to-day running of the business, that took away having to then supply work, I suppose, for employees. And they moved to the contract basis because it meant that they could then go to market, find the right person to suit the specific requirements of that client. So again, it's just really understanding where the value sits and what your business is needing.
I have a win-win-win philosophy, especially for human digital. The setup has to be a win for the client, a win for the agency, and a win for the team. And I think sometimes those things get out of whack. I think when there is tension, and there always will be tension and changes, it's just making sure that everyone in that relationship continues to win.
Yeah.
Stated properly, that the workload is manageable. It's just that balance to make sure that everyone continues to thrive.
Yeah, I agree.
And marketing teams can be structured in different ways. What are some of the ways that you see successful marketing teams being structured, Steph?
Yeah, so I've worked on a lot of global brands, and I think this is a really interesting one. And what's typically happened in the organizations that I've worked in is it's been one marketing team in a business serving that market, and that works really well. Where it gets tricky sometimes, what they might call the decentralized model, where you've got, and this happens a lot in alcohol. So if you've got one big global brand, and Smirnoff, for example, is a great one to use here. All of the thinking can often be done at the country of origin for that brand. And so there's what you might call a global marketing team, and they set the direction. They do all of the brand positioning. They come up with the campaign idea, and then they basically farm that out to the rest of the world. And they say, here you go and implement that into your market. And there are real pros and cons around doing that, because on the one hand, you've got consistency. So Smirnoff or even Coca-Cola looks the same in every market, and McDonald's would probably be another example, like another great example of that. But then what you miss out on is the localization piece. And
Mm.
even between Australia and New Zealand, and I'm sure you see this in your business, it's not like for like necessarily. We've all got there's some real subtleties sometimes, even between what might appear to be quite similar markets.
Definitely. And if you have a brand, you do have to have the baseline that is consistent. But this, I think, comes back to the resourcing question, making sure that your marketing resourcing is aligned to the business goals. And those business goals will typically be something like the brand must stay consistent across markets, their, colors, fonts, tone of voice, products, how you show up. But for brands to be successful in market, they have to be aligned to, guess who? The customer. And how do you get aligned to the local customer? It's having local teams in the local market that know the customer and that can position your product and promote your product in ways that are going to resonate with that customer. And I think, again, there's no one size fits all, but it is having the balance of that brand consistency set in a centralized way, but having local execution with the ability to adjust and change things. And there are some examples of local teams with the constraints set at the centralized level doing some really cool, amazing marketing that wins awards.
Yeah.
Unilever is a great example of that. A big conglomerate of brands doing some really cool stuff in local markets.
And even when I went to Cannes and looked at some of the presentations from Heineken, they have something called Global Local as a framework that they use. They use a lot of frameworks, and Heineken again is a very tightly controlled brand, but they localize for markets, and they won some awards at Cannes Lion this year as a result of doing that. And being tapped into your local market is really, really important, I think, because I have also seen lots of wasted media spend. And in fact, when I worked at Reckitt Benckiser, we did this because it's a German business. The same Finnish dishwashing ad plays everywhere in the world, and they just dub it over. And so we spent quite a lot of money on buying TV media back in the day, and we just literally lifted and shifted. Again, I would say that I think one of the reasons that probably wasn't the right fit for me is because there was no creativity in that. It is just taking everything that comes from global and just pushing it out. So I would be a very strong proponent and supporter for localizing global content if you happen to be in an environment where you're working on a global brand.
And localizing is not dubbing the voiceover. It is actually creating local content.
Yeah,
but I think that's another episode.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really great. I think there's some really clear things in this, Ben, to kind of look at what a great marketing organization actually looks like. And I think as we've covered off, there's lots of similarities and differences between B2B and B2C, but some of those key ones are making sure that your marketing team is aligned, connected to the business strategy, looking for good leadership.
And that takes us really nicely into our next episode, which is on the role of the CMO. So if you are a CMO or a marketing leader, or you want to be a CMO, this is the episode for you. So we'll talk about what a CMO or head of marketing does, the relationship that the CMO has with other members on the leadership team, and how to create an amazing, successful marketing team.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben. Have a wonderful weekend.
Have a great weekend, Steph. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.